Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Teofimo Lopez versus Rolando Romero fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to become a YouTube member or a Patreon member. You can request any kind of combat sporting related content and I'll try my best to get out there for you guys. I appreciate all the support in which I've had with it so far, and let's get straight into this one. Of course, this is for the WBA World Welterweight title, and I mean, this is just a fight of two friends fighting each other realistically, which is rare to see in boxing, but it's, you know, two guys who are comedic guys, so the build-up's been quite entertaining in that way. But I mean, I can't lie, I've never really been a fan of fighters, however big of a name they are, getting a title shot off of a loss. And I mean, you can make the clear argument that Shakur beat Lopez in very convincing fashion, and that is why he shouldn't be given another title shot. And I mean, it wasn't a stoppage win, I suppose, for Stevenson, but he did outbox him, he outpointed him, and it was a clear win for Shakur Stevenson. The only difference and argument that you can make with Teofimo Lopez is bigger than what you could say for the likes of Ryan Garcia getting a title shot off his loss to Rolando Romero, or William Zepeda getting a title shot off of his loss to Shakur Stevenson. The difference is that Teofimo, of course, has been a world champion, and not just a world champion, he's been a multi-weight, former unified world champion, and so that holds a bit more weight to it. In coming up in weight, you know, he's getting this title shot, and again, it has a bit more of a weight to it because of what he has already achieved, and the fact that the loss to Shakur Stevenson, obviously, he's one of the best guys around, pound for pound, one of the best fighters around at the moment. And then his previous loss otherwise against Kambosos was a close split decision, which obviously he then went on a world title run afterwards. So, you know, when you look at Garcia lost to Romero and got dropped, and he lost to Gervonta Davis and got stopped. So for him to have been given a title shot off of the loss to Romero is different to Lopez getting a title shot. Like I say, I'm still not normally a fan of it, and I think a name like, you know, Jack Catterall, of course, he was meant to be given the opportunity to fight Rolly Romero. I mean, he is WBA regular champion at the moment, so, you know, if we're going on off the sanctioning bodies, it should have been Jack Catterall getting the opportunity to fight Romero, but obviously that's not happening just yet. And I suppose the argument that you can make for somebody like Catterall to not get the opportunity is, well, over somebody like Teofimo, is because of the fact that Jack lost to Barboza and Teofimo beat Barboza convincingly. So in that way, you know, you can make two arguments, I suppose, for Teofimo Lopez to get an opportunity over, you know, the likes of who would have been next in Jack Catterall. So, you know, I imagine that fight will still happen at some point between Catterall and the winner of whoever wins this fight, but this fight is, of course, a bigger fight. On paper, it's going to create more money, it's going to have more hype around it than a Jack Catterall Rolly Romero fight would have. But again, you know, you can make the argument either way to say why, you know, a fighter shouldn't be given a title shot off of a loss, and why perhaps, you know, at this time you can make more of an argument of, you know, it being a little bit more fair than when it's happened in previous times recently. We can't forget the wins in which Lopez has got and how good of a fighter he can be on his day and in a stylistic matchup that suits him. Hopefully we'll get that best version of himself. You know, of course, the version in which he beat Barboza Jr. with was a real excellent Teofimo Lopez. Of course, he has the win over Lomachenko as well, which is Another very good victory, which obviously did age well. And so again, when he's on at his best, I mean, his win against Josh Taylor was a really good win as well, where you would say he was at his best. He is an excellent fighter, but is that best version of him with his dad in his corner? I'm not too sure. I mean, we've seen the clips of them two kind of going back and forth with, how they were perceiving the fight against Shakur, and how Lopez Sr. wasn't really helping Teofimo Lopez with his comments, kind of putting him down in there when the fight was happening. So, again, should we really be seeing Teofimo's dad be in the corner with him again? Is that the best for Teofimo? I don't know. I mean, a lot of fighters jump and chop between trainers, and it's not always something that works that well. It probably would have been nice to have seen Teofimo get a different coach, because he could have really thrived under a new coach, because he is an excellent fighter. And I mean, his dad can take him to be at a real top level, but again, is just there a little bit more to be shown from Teofimo Lopez for when maybe times get tough, making their adjustments a bit more, possibly, and that could be something in which we could have seen from a new coach if we were to have seen Teofimo Lopez go and try and get a new coach, which, I mean, for the moment he isn't doing. People forget that Romero was also fortunate to get a title shot against Garcia back when they fought to win the belt, after he had only had one comeback fight off of a TKO loss to Cruz, and it still weren't really that long ago since his loss to Gervonta Davis as well. But he shocked everyone against Garcia, and of course that's aged well, with Garcia going on to become a world champion to get that opportunity. So, I mean, you both have to say that both guys have been somewhat fortunate to be in maybe this position, but they are willing to test themselves against all the top names. I mean, we've seen Romero, like I mentioned, fight Gervonta Davis, fight Isaac Pitbull Cruz, two real dangerous fighters, and I mean, take the Garcia fight as well. So, three real dangerous fighters. And then we've seen Teofimo Lopez, he's had some very tough level fights as well. Lomachenko, Cambosos, when he was at a real good kind of level. Josh Taylor to win the belts. Again, Shakur Stevenson as well. It took a while for that matchup to be made, but that was a real top level fight as well. And so, again, neither of these guys have really shied away from the real top big payday fights, and so that's been good. But again, maybe against some contenders in which, aren't as big a names, they maybe have chosen other routes instead, just like we're kind of seeing at the moment with Romero and Jack Catterall. But again, for a fan's perspective, this is, you would definitely have to say, a much more exciting fight, in my opinion, as a stylistic matchup. Romero as a fighter, we'll start by speaking about him and the positives of him. He, in more recent fights, I mean, especially the Garcia fight, he had his right hand tucked to his chin much better, and that was something in which he has shown a significant improvement with, just keeping that right hand tucked to his chin, not getting caught out by the sharp hooks of Ryan Garcia. Of course, he was very aware of that, and he was bringing back his punches well, even when he was catching Garcia. When he caught him with that two shots, he still brought back his punches well. And again, that's something in which, discipline wise, he does look like he is showing improvements, which is, real interesting thing to see from Romero, now moving up in weight as well. Both guys, again, have been lower weight division fighters, but Romero has shown he can move up into the welterweight division well, and we haven't seen that from Lopez just yet, of course, and so we will have to wait and see how he fares with that. But to carry on speaking about Romero, he twists into his hooks quickly and well. He, of course, was able to do that to get the knockdown. onto Garcia, twisting into them very quickly to get a good amount of venom behind both hooks in which he landed. He gets his range down pretty comfortably, really measuring out with that jab. He can fight at either distance, really. I would say he is probably best at a mid-range, but he is comfortable in close as well. He mixes up his jab to be a lead hook, which again was what caught out Garcia, mixing up that jab to be a lead hook, and good hand speed as well. Both of these guys have got very good hand speed. He's got comfortable hand feints as well when he is fighting comfortably. He also, I believe, is becoming more creative in hiding what he's going to throw as well. If you cast your mind back to that Gervonta Davis fight, he of course got countered and got stopped, and he was getting caught with counters and big shots from Gervonta Davis throughout the fight. But it's because he did make it really obvious at times of what he was going to throw. That could be more so down to just fighting a counter puncher, in which Lopez is quite heavily, so he might see them traits come back a little bit. But in the Garcia fight, he was, like I say, disguising what he was throwing. Nobody expected him to throw that double left hook that he dropped Garcia with, and that's something which we again hadn't seen from Romero. We've been used to just seeing Romero drop his hand and try and get it, well, make it clearer he's going to throw to the body a hook, or he's going to really give it away a little bit more and just, like I say, make it that bit more predictable. And against the elite time counter punches like Gervonta Davis is, he could see that coming, and Romero was leaving them gaps open before he threw the punches as well. And again, that's how Romero was getting caught. But again, them improvements do look to be there from Romero. Negatives about him: the head movement is still nothing really too crazy. He does look to go back in lines. He leaves out his jab, causing a gap there to be timed, which we have seen him get caught by on a couple of occasions when he has been hurt. He squares up very wide. He can definitely tense up when in close on the back foot, and again, if he gets hurt, he obviously has been hurt worse than that of Teofimo Lopez. Lopez hasn't been stopped. He didn't get stopped by Kambosos in what was a close fight, and he didn't get stopped last time out by Shakur. But of course, we've seen Romero get stopped by Davis, which wasn't awful, the amount of damage in which he took, but the fight in against Cruz, he was getting beaten up a lot more, and that wasn't the best of looks, and we haven't seen that from Lopez. He, I don't think, plants his feet as well as that of Lopez when Lopez is at his best. He knows how to clinch, but he doesn't do it the best, especially if he's hurt. He doesn't know how to clinch well enough then. And he was definitely reacting more when he gets caught with big punches, and it does look to have an effect because he does stagger forwards a bit if he gets caught by a big shot. And again, we've seen that in both the stoppage defeats, and there was a time against Cruz where he was just getting beaten up and he just didn't look like he knew what to do before he got before the ref jumped in, and he just looked completely out of it. He sits on the ropes if he gets put there. He throws wider than that of Lopez, and he overreaches if he misses you as well. Lopez, as a fighter, has got very good hand speed and sharp, varied counters with good timing, which obviously against Barboza Jr, he was able to get off really well. He's composed and confident. Again, that's something in which we've kind of always seen. That's just his persona in general. He varies the range of counters very well as well. He carries a real good snap to his punches. He throws pairs of punches off his jab, so he'll throw a jab, come over with another straight or another punch to follow up upon it very quickly and nicely, and brings back his jab better than that of Romero. Even if it's not being brought back to the chin, he does typically bring it back to at least a better position. He gets back out of exchanges when he's at his best pretty well as well. Again, perhaps better than that of Romero. He's got good punch variation. He can mix in two shots with ease for the most part. It looks very comfortable when he is throwing them two shot combinations. And he knows when to plant his feet, I think, that bit better than that of Romero. Again, that looked to be really showing in that Barboza fight, where again Barboza was missing and he was just there continuously planting his feet at the perfect moments to counter him with just really good timed punches. Negatives about him: if the opponent isn't being the aggressor is when he gets caught out, and of course we've seen that against Shakur, and that was evident against Shakur. He wasn't getting past the front foot very well. Of course, Shakur's a southpaw, and that was catching him off guard, I think, a lot. But he was squaring up too much when he was coming in, and he was kind of falling forwards off balance, and then he was getting kind of moved off from counters. Shakur was really allowing Lopez to lead, and Lopez was doing it, but again, was then just getting caught continuously when doing it, and just looked a bit flustered whenever he got caught with a counter. It looked like it took him a minute to register what had just happened every time in which he got caught with a counter, which could then lead Shakur to either reset or to carry on throwing, which again was just leading Lopez to not be able to be in a good enough position to throw himself. I don't think Lopez throws when he's in that bad of a spot. If he is getting caught with counters, or if he does perhaps square up and then fall off balance a little bit, he's not then throwing from them bad positions, whereas Romero, if he is in a bad spot, is more willing to just throw even if it's not from a good position. Lopez wants to make sure he's got that base down before he is throwing that bit more. He leaves the gap to the body, which I've seen in certain fights of his as well. His hands are low for the most part, and he isn't really able to impose himself physically, and he doesn't really throw as much in combinations. Romero has the aggressiveness a bit more there to throw in combinations than I think Lopez has. Lopez will throw in the 2 punches, which is a combination I suppose, but not then too much often after that. Again, that's where Romero might be able to turn up the tempo a little bit more and then actually start to back up Lopez if he is able to get any combinations down off of perhaps a missed counter or something like that, or if he allows Lopez to lead and perhaps Romero catches him out with the power that he has been more comfortable at welterweight now. Who do I think is going to win this fight? I think that Teofimo Lopez is going to be able to win via a unanimous decision. I think the defensive gaps are there more for Romero, for Teofimo to counteract. Of course, we've seen Lopez at his best when he's against an aggressive fighter, and Romero can be more aggressive, much more so than that of Shakur. I think the power could catch out Lopez, and Lopez could be too comfortable at times, and that could catch him out as well. But I think Lopez will be able to step and move, and Romero will allow the fight to be at a mid-range for long enough. Then I think Romero will leave gaps and openings from when he throws his jab, which Lopez, if he's at his best and at his sharpest still at welterweight, will be able to counteract pretty continuously. I don't think he is going to be able to truly hurt Romero, but I think he is going to outland him, use his speed to be that better with the gaps, and then be able to damage him enough throughout the fight to win a via unanimous decision. And then, just not get drawn into too much of a scrappy fight with Romero, which I just don't think he will. And then, like I say, a good unanimous decision victory there would be a real good start into the welterweight division, and get, of course, Lopez to be a freeweight world champion, which is, of course, a huge achievement as well. And then, you would like to imagine that he would fight Jack Catterall next, because WBA ordered it. I think they said it had to be over like 190 days or something like that before it happens, and so there was enough time for this fight to happen in between. But I'd imagine it would have to be Jack Catterall next. So you'd think that would happen. Otherwise, it could probably only be another big name champion if it's not Jack Catterall next. So I mean, Haney it could be. We don't really know what's happening with Haney at the moment. Of course, now the Keyshawn Davis fight isn't happening. Like I said, we don't know what's happening with Devin Haney. Or we could see maybe Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn fighting. Of course, they're fighting for that WBC belt. We could end up seeing one of them go on to fight a Teofimo Lopez. Of course, Lopez, a real big name. Ben is also ranked with the WBA quite well. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if we end up seeing Lopez sign with Zuffa. It could end up happening, but I don't think he would vacate his title unless the WBA force it to happen. So again, we'll have to wait and see, but it would be a real star name for Zuffa to get. moving on to the last fight which I'm going to be speaking about on this card, and it's an interesting one. It's an interesting card, a bit of an underrated card. I mean, it's got Yonis Hernandez, which is in an interesting fight, and Carlos Utria, who I'm really excited for, coming off that WBC Grand Prix that they did. I'm really intrigued to see how he does. But this fight is Victor Santillan versus Gary Antonio Russell for the interim WBA Super Bantamweight title. And this is a weird fight to have for an interim title. It's a good fight in general, but it's a weird fight to have for an interim title, and I'm not really sure why the WBA sanctioned Santillan to have an interim title shot. Last time out, of course, he got that interim title shot, which was against Cepeda, and that was in Santillan's home country. He won via TKO, but again, you know, I don't know why that fight was made for an interim title. It wasn't the two best names fighting in the division, I don't think. I mean, Santillan and Cepeda hadn't really fought anyone. Santillan had, but he was coming from the bantamweight division, and he was coming off losses, clear losses as well, so he was also not a world champion moving up in weight, so I don't know why he got gifted an interim title fight. But he did, and he's on a little bit of a decent run, and you would have to say, and he's probably coming off that being his career best victory, even though, like I say, Cepeda hadn't really proven himself. So, you know, he's coming off a good win, but it's still not a good level of opponent, really, and every time in which he has fought against a high level, he's lost in Nasukawa and Ishida. Of course, Nasukawa ended up fighting for a world title, and Ishida, I'm pretty sure, fought for world titles as well, both of them at bantamweight. But Nasukawa really went on and put on an excellent performance against Nasukawa, and that was, you know, a convincing loss. The Ishida one was a close fight, ended up going to a split decision, but that one versus Nasukawa really wasn't. So again, it made me question why the interim belt for the WBA was even made. I just don't feel like it needed to be made. I mean, it probably does mean that the winner of this fight will be elevated. You would expect to become a world champion, especially, you know, as we're hearing about Inoue possibly going on to fight Bam Rodriguez. I mean, if he rematches Nakatani, then it probably won't be made that the winner of this fight gets elevated straight away. But I just doubt that we're going to end up seeing the winner of this fight go on to fight Naoya Inoue. I mean, Russell's had his own losses as well, so there's just bigger names out there for Inoue. So again, it's just very random why this fight is happening for an interim title. But like I say, it's an interesting fight as a fight. I mean, if you count interim belts as true world titles, then you'd say Gary Antonio Russell is aiming to become the third Russell brother to become a world champion with this fight, which is of course a real big achievement for the whole family. And I mean, he's had a stop-start career, Russell, dedicating his time to his family, and I mean, he's had injuries as well. I know that he coached his brother to become that super lightweight world champion, Gary Antuanne Russell, after his dad unfortunately passed. But then he's also had injury problems as well, Antonio Russell. So again, he has had a bit of a stop-start career, and he's never really had too much momentum going, and he is coming in off a year out again, I'm pretty sure. So again, it'll be interesting to see how he is fighting, and I don't mind him fighting for, you know, a higher up title, because, you know, he is a bit more of a proven name, because he has fought at a decent high level, and he was able to get a win against Santiago, which was a decent win before Santiago went on to become a world champion. Obviously, Santiago's gone on to lose a few times since then, but that wasn't a bad win. That was his best, you would have to say, for Russell. Of course, he fought Rodriguez twice in what were nice fights. I mean, both ending in head clashes, but that second one was a clear win for Rodriguez, knocking down and hurting Antonio Russell on multiple occasions. So, you know, that was interesting, and that would be interesting to see how, you know, that happens, and if that happens in this fight, because we saw some vulnerabilities in Russell in that fight for sure, and we haven't seen him tested at the highest of levels since then. And of course, we ended up seeing Rodriguez go on to lose badly to Inoue again. Perhaps another reason as to why we don't want to see the winner of this fight go on to fight Inoue. But again, also we don't want to see the head clashes either. from this fight, which of course we saw both times in the Russell Rodriguez fights. And I mean, this is two southpaws going up against each other. It definitely could cause head clashes though, because I do think that Santillan ducks his head down a lot when he comes in, and Russell, of course, kind of jumps in with his head a bit. So this definitely could end up with a head clash. But Santillan will come forwards with a good tempo early, but the technique in which he throws in isn't the best, often flinging his body into shots. He kind of will throw punches but then fling his whole body into it, which then puts him just a bit out of control and off balance, and he'll follow you around the ring. He can be slowed down significantly though, and this kind of come forward pressure in which he has does and can be put off if he can be stalled by counter punches, and that's what Nascar was able to do very well, with just taking the short steps back, making him miss, making him pay. Clean, sharp boxing in that way, and it was really working against Santillan. So again, he's not always able to force you back as well, but I just don't know if Russell is as good of a fighter going back and trying to be a clean fighter in that way. I've never really seen him be like that. Russell, again, I'm not fully sold on his ability. I think he's got, a decent set of body work, I suppose, and he can come forwards throwing combinations. I would say his body shots is probably his best pair of punches. His jab's alright when he gets it going a bit later on. He isn't that accurate though, and the time punches in which he throws often miss. And he doesn't switch up his technique, and when he is getting backed up, he can be uncomfortable. He can look messy with his footwork. He can get caught out by counters as well, and he can get caught with body shots as well, and his guard doesn't look particularly strong. So I'm actually leaning towards Victor Santillan winning via unanimous decision in this fight and retaining this interim title in which he's been able to get. I think it's going to be a bit of a scrappy fight at times, and I'm not, here saying that Victor Santillan is the best, next best contender for Inoue to face, because I don't believe that. But I think, again, the timeout from Russell, the more recent lack of high-level opponents, not really getting back to the high level of contenders since his loss to Rodriguez, isn't really the best of looks, and he really didn't look the best in that fight. I think Santillan is going to be able to throw the body shots, in which he does throw nicely himself, have success with them, and then just continually be able to work away onto Russell, who will probably make it a scrappy fight but get caught coming in from Santillan just throwing everything at him at multiple different occasions. Santillan will just throw the kitchen sink, and I think it will land because Russell will be made to miss, and Santillan's lack of controlled throwing will just happen to land and happen to work because Santillan will be fighting also at a bit of a higher tempo as well. And so yeah, I'm saying a unanimous decision victory for Victor Santillan, and then we can go on to fight next. I mean, there's some good fights there. I mean, a Cardenas fight could be a good fight. I wouldn't have minded seeing Cardenas actually fight for this title anyway, because of course he gave a tough fight to Inoue, and then also, I mean, he's come back with a victory since. He's now fighting on a pro box card soon. So if he wins that fight, then we could definitely see Cardenas fight Santillan for a WBA interim, and that actually gives a bit more prestige to the interim title a bit more, because at least Cardenas is a bit more of a deserving name, I suppose. So that could be, and probably would be, my preferred option. But if we're looking at the WBA rankings, we have Russian fighter Shekov, he's Russian Uzbekistan fighter. So again, he's coming off a win against a ranked guy as well, who's a bit lower down in the rankings. So he's managed to get himself a top #1 spot, so that could end up happening, but I don't know if that's really anything that anybody would really be too bothered about. Or Barrientos, he just most recently fought on a Matchroom card, and he's ranked with the WBA, so there could be something that could be made there into a fight. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw that fight happen if Barrientos has signed with Matchroom, and it could be a big fight for Barrientos to make a bit more of a name for himself in that way. But I'd just like to see a person who, either is making more of a name for himself or is a bit more of a no-name fight for this title than Santillan, because Santillan, we don't want to see Santillan get a title shot, because I just don't think he deserves it. just yet, unless he goes on to beat, another guy. So, someone like a Barrientos, if he beats a Santillan, then that is a good enough win for him to then get a title shot. But again, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what happens with the super or regular belt for the WBA with, of course, Inoue, if he vacates it or not. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did indeed like the video. Subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.